Hey guys, how's it going? It's September 4th, 2017, Labor Day, 10:01 p.m. Not too sure. Like within a few minutes ago, had a storm going through and then started to settle down. Severe thunderstorm watch. I'm not trying to give you a weather report here, but unfortunately, my fears here was that it was going to get pretty nasty, but let's take a look and see. Well, I don't know if that was that one or what. I don't know when that was. At 9:40, so it probably. I can't even tell which. Well, there's a pretty good chance we might still get more, or I really don't know. Let me just zoom it out a bit. Maybe not. Hard to say. I mean, sounded pretty good, but that was the cell right there. Looks like we're okay. Dang it. I was worried because I was doing it. I spent all like 3 hours this afternoon and I was in the middle of doing the white paper on my site. I regret stopping. Saved it. Thought better continue this later. I was gonna go on live now. Now I wish I just went to this first, and then decided. But wasn't a big deal. I wanted to get so this went up 4 minutes ago. Literally, the storm was on top of us. Excuse me. Oh man. So this was. Please note this is not complete due to a storm in my area. That was 6 minutes ago, I guess, but whatever. Um, Now I don't know what to do. I feel like an idiot going on to YouTube, going into my um. Well, how about this? I'll make this one fairly brief. Grab a drink of water, and then I will try and get all my thoughts in. Just give me a few minutes here. Yeah. But anyways, the I'll show you the as far as the articles, and all these can be searched. Although I don't have this one searchable at the moment. You can always go through the recent wiki activity. I didn't announce it or put a link to it, but I wanted to show it to you now. First of all, let me go through with the RTS white paper. So this is up. Link is here. As you can see, this is a pretty huge amount of information. It's got your contents on here. So if you know various histories, so why is an RTS2 here and stuff like this, but you want to go into some of the specifics, you can. It goes from everything from what we've done in the past, the reliance on manpower, ease of access for manpower. See this all here: development products, future projects. Run8, the version 2 that changed everything, which it really did. It's not here. Needs to be developed. The survey module, which I have completed. The waybill versus probability creation, random weights, capacity safeguards, a tag system, schedule and call, further automation and conclusions. So anyways, I want to discuss really brief here about Waycross, and then I will sum it up what this is all about. Now, as I said, the white paper, as far as, I don't know what fancy, I don't even know if I'm using the proper term, to be honest. That's what I'm calling it. I post a message here. I'll reply to this if I do complete tonight. I am a little bit tired, but I would rather, since I'm in live stream right now, I stopped at item number 4. I was speaking to Ski earlier tonight for a little while, but that wasn't. I would have got into something else. I may have got into. I wasn't too sure. He was traveling, and then we were talking for a while, and then all of a sudden I had 2 hours free. So I wasn't even sure if I was going to do it tonight. At the rate things, were going. So we were a really good conversation, and but he was tired, and I'm starting to get tired myself too, because I guess the 6 hours sleep for the last couple days or whatever the heck it's been catch up on me suddenly. But basically all this is doing is it's going through again a little bit of what's going on here. What this is basically is in a response to Tom and what he has started. Now, I haven't responded to Tom other than email conversations between I in the past as far as what he would like to see, and I told him that I would think about some ideas as to how we may be able to achieve this. At least I believe that's how I put it. But I talked about the 24/7 servers and then the AI Revolution version 2, which that's when the storm, I could hear it coming, and I knew there was one coming tonight, so I thought, well, since I'm in the middle, I know how Wikia is, it doesn't auto-save, and thought to myself, if the power goes out, all that work, especially when I did like 3 hours work today, I did not want to lose anything. So I just basically saved it, which means it posted the article. What I'll say is this, and I want to try to summarize my thoughts as far as, and this is basically out to those who are Florida server, and I'm not going to make this a long video actually, because I kind of do want to get back into it maybe, if I can get it. It's hard to put things in words, especially this, because this is more of a, this is something that has to be more of not what I think, but what both myself and Tom thinks, or for that matter, what both myself, Tom, and the Florida 24/7 community thinks. The reason why I started with all this and talking about 24/7 servers is because our philosophies and how we run things is definitely different. And whereas Mike and I in California seem to, for the most part, have the same philosophies. Now, we didn't agree on everything. And in particular, if I could probably pinpoint 2 things that are different about his server than what they were when he was RTS California. As far as I know, he doesn't do any freezing of the clock. I think he runs on the same time of day as everything. And got what is it? I'm trying to think how to properly. Doesn't do the freezing of the clock, but he also has a little less traffic too. I think that was 2 of the things. Plus, he has his own form, which I guess 3 things that would make it different. I don't know if there was other things too. Whatever. You know, everything's fine between Mike and I. Everything's fine between Tom and I too. There's no issues, no rifts or anything like that. People tend to like certain regions or like certain routes. There's others who have a little bit more time to like to go to different routes and even different servers. There's no requirement for anybody here to be loyal to a particular server or groups or route or anything like that. People do whatever they want to do. I don't care if people post here and advertise. I don't care, you know, whatever. I don't even care if there's competing software for RTS, quite frankly. If anything, it might inspire me to get my button gear and try to do it, or I might just relax and say, hey, yeah, your ideas are better than mine. I like it. I think I'd have fun running. So I put out a pretty hefty white paper as I showed you on the first one. Now this one is a little bit more difficult because it really has nothing to do with, again, the more I think about it, the more I think, well, this probably would be better off as a discussion as opposed to a white paper. And I thought about that when I was creating the article, and then the storm came in. So I figured, well, I'll leave it for now, and maybe I'll edit, and maybe I'll modify it, and maybe we'll see how it goes. But the difference, as far as Tom and I see, um, and I've always had, like, for me personally, my own personal experience with Florida, and why before even Waycross I had a difficult time getting into it. And this goes back to the version 1 California days, even on my own server, or Mike took over. Probably it had a lot to do with why I was getting tired, quite frankly, of California and running a server on it. I did not like running trains on my own server. I was, at some point, I started getting tired of, just humping trains, which is kind of ironic because I'm doing it now in Waycross and I'm doing the dispatching. So that's a careful road that I have to follow on. But the difference here is, well, I shouldn't say that because there's more than just humping train. I'm actually dispatching too. So that's the added element. Will it always be that way, or will something else happen? I'm not sure. But eventually, others in California took on different similar responsibilities, so I wasn't have to worry about doing that all the time. But what really, for me, getting tired of that, it basically started wearing at me. Because if you weren't running trains, I mean, the only thing you were doing is you'd be fortunate enough to get a bunch of people together for, try to advertise or get something special. Some the thing with the 24/7 servers is you can plan for something, try to organize together, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a lot of people together at the same time. Just like you can plan for dispatching and you can do all kinds of things. What I would say, if anything, if I was to go, like, how much, like, see, I'm getting tired because my mind is wandering a bit trying to collect my thoughts, so definitely a little tired right now for some strange reason. But it's not like I was up super early. Anyways, you've got a 24/7 server, and you're just running in, um you got no AI. You really don't have sessions planned, but you're into that 24/7, and this is why I discuss about the 24/7 servers in here, why it was done, and I reiterate some of the things that I was saying in the other article. When you have that, there isn't so much of a necessity to get a bunch of people together because people can come on whenever they want. However, what that takes away is the ability to have a lot of people together, and especially having dispatchers, and especially when you have AI now, being able to have realistic traffic levels. I even when I was running locals in different areas, not having traffic around me or not having things to see or not having feeling like I was part of a system, and it was always important to be part of a system, but feeling as though I was a system. At the very least, with AI running, I feel as if I am part of a system. Even if the AI is controlling it, I still feel like I'm part of a system. And we're just running trains for the sake of running trains and seeing trains meet don't really mean nothing. It's the traffic and the meets. It's the planning stages of meets and priorities and scheduling and all those things, that dynamics that really play in. Um, just seeing trains pass you doesn't mean anything. Like Selkirk Mohawk, I would see that all the time. That didn't really mean much to me. I very rarely did I run Selkirk Mohawk, to be honest. I really didn't run the route that often. Most of the time, I just dispatched it and ran AI and popped in, and did things. So running the trains, that's one of the unfortunate side effects of with basically having to host or being trying to organize something, is you're the one that has to entertain and run the show, which kind of wears on you after a while, and it does. So for me personally, I have always, and I even like as early as a few months back, I was saying it would be really nice to see people have sessions, because for me, as much as I wanted to support Tom and be on his server, just getting on the server and running wasn't enough, because I never knew how much traffic I would see. And this is before Waycross. I never knew how much traffic I would see. I really didn't want to be bored and just run a train that I could do in single player, which bored me anyways. Um, there was no challenge to it. And I didn't want to switch, because I had plenty of that going on when I'm trimming my, different yard switchers or doing different things. I had enough switching. So I didn't want that. So I can see I'm not going to get to this article tonight because I'm rambling. Which is okay. It's fine, because I'd rather be full of energy and 100% in the game. I'm going to go ahead and modify this article, because I really haven't touched anything here, but I do want to touch it since I'm on YouTube now, and I'm not going to be doing this for much longer. I can tell you that this isn't going to be so I'm going to try to get to the point as much as I can. So Tom and the Florida server have a very common bond of enjoying running switching, and Tom has done extensive development, uses the RTS. I believe he still uses RTS 1, last I heard, to help generate RTS 2 trains, I believe, or at least he has about half a dozen people. It's not a big, huge number, but they're able to run the yards, flat switch, do all the locals, and the rest of the trains that don't interact or or non-revenue or non-maintenance or non-manifest or whatever. I guess intermodal's part of that too. The rest of the trains that don't interact really don't play into the game. So that possibly how that possibly goes into what differs with me? Oh, and there's the lightning there, so I'm glad I did. This could go at any time, by the way. That was a pretty good. You can hear the thunder right there. I had a funny feeling it might come back. Wrap around. So probably a good thing I don't go into the article tonight. I'll just change it. So as long as this live stream lasts, but I'm not going to be staying up. So for me personally, what do I look for? I look for the traffic. Look for. I don't worry too much about people necessarily, but I certainly look for traffic flows. I certainly love being part of a system that somebody else is dispatching. That's when I can take a train, run it. That's when I can take a switcher and run it, quite frankly, or a hump or whatever. Because, I mean, even when I reached out about a month or so ago, some of my first runs, I actually ran on the Southwest Rails, which is the former California RTS site that Mike has. I actually ran a couple mainline runs under dispatcher during, I believe, the daytime. I think I ran one evening and one daytime run or something. And yeah, there was plenty of traffic and meets, but just running and having traffic and meets with no purpose really doesn't matter to me either. So I do appreciate the purpose side of things. I think that's important. Um, just running a train for the sake of running. So there's sometimes there's a part of me that I don't know necessarily what the hell I want sometimes. I know I want change, and sometimes it's hard for me to find what exactly that change is. All I know is that yesterday I ran Waycross. Today I didn't run it, even though I had the time. I decided to focus on at least this, and just kind of relax, go out for a walk today. Basically did my thing. I find if I do run 2 days in a row, I tend to wipe myself out real quick. So I try not to run my own thing 2 days in a row, despite the fact that I usually have a Sunday and a Monday to do that. That's what I'm finding. Even though today was a holiday, I could tell that I was already getting, quote unquote, a little bit bored tonight. A couple of hours. And I almost wanted to get another video game or start doing something else. So you have Tom who wants to continue to do 24, from what I understand. Got myself, who I'm not too opposed to 24/7 but what I want to do is I want to be able to maintain the traffic levels and be able to dispatch, not necessarily myself, but be able to have a dispatchable system and maintain some kind of uh, sense of time. And when that sense of time can't be completed within a certain time frame, I want things to be able to continue. So what I found is with Waycross, I made two breakthroughs, and I was going to mention one article that I got to it. I found two breakthroughs. First breakthrough, and I've posted these on YouTube. I think these are on YouTube. Probably posted about. First breakthrough involved being able to have a yard track actually serve as an industry. Concept behind that is run a train and you run it up to a particular yards. All you have to do is keep it in AI, and the only time you really have to deal with it when it does its setouts, which isn't too bad, especially when you have a yard like Waycross that can block that train into various sub-train blocks. Makes it very easy. So Waycross does its job. it builds the train. Train is sent out. It runs AI all the way to certain points, whether or not it goes into Jacksonville, or if it goes down even further, runs the various yards. It's able to do this thing. I'm not up to all the trains. I constantly use Tom's train list on here reference, but you know, having those things, and let me just double check here to see what's. Just want to make sure I am on. Yes, I. So having the ability to go in, you know, and basically be able to run the train, and the concept is very simple. It's available to, if that train does its run within 4 hours or something and just happens to run in the course of a session of a night, what I call a session, running for 3 hours, or even if it doesn't, maybe it does 2, and it's able to do its thing, then those trains suddenly switching becomes available for that. If, however, there's not enough people or manpower to take over that, then it's automated, because then those cars automatically are loaded and emptied and are part of the send back. So not the 24/7 cycle, but the actual simulation time cycle is maintained. Thus, all the trains and traffic and everything that's managed from a top-down design that basically starts and ends with Waycross, because Waycross is the hub. That is what keeps it going. It also, quite frankly, would be responsible for time of day. It's responsible for when passenger trains are run and when they're run on schedule. So all those things, and these were things that I had going on in California as well, but all those things would introduce some form of expectance AI. You have dispatchers that sign up, they do their thing. Now, if I was to take Southwest Rails, or even some of the sessions that I had going there for a while in the various projects, Bakersfield project, Selkirk project, those things I would actually announce the sessions in advance. They would appear on Run8 servers. I don't know if you can really do this, but here's the way I look at it. And this is, of course, in response to basically saying there's a way we can. Personally, I have two ideas of this. The first is if, and I say if 24/7 was maintained on server, then I would likely, well, there's a few things. Number one, the reason why running sessions gives you ultimate control is because you can run it on any computer. You don't need a dedicated server. That makes it very interesting, because what happens is, let me try this way. One idea I had was, if you have only a limited number of people and some like to run at certain times, some like to run at others, but they know relatively when they are able to run and when they would like to host. First of all, anybody can host. If you're running client, you can. It doesn't take up that much. As long as you have a fairly good internet connection. So, let's say, for example, I like to run Monday and Wednesday. Say I choose. Maybe I'll put Sunday in there, but I don't want to get over. I know it's very easy to get burned out. So, but let's just say, for the sake of my example, I like to be responsible, host, and run the show Mondays. So if I'm hosting and running the show Mondays and Wednesdays, then it's my responsibility to make sure all the trains are set up, everything, spawned when they're supposed to be spawned, etc., and it goes along. Now, Tom could very well, I don't know what, I know Tom's very busy. I know a lot of people are very busy. But what could happen, and this is similar to a concept that I had, I can't remember the name of it, but there was a time, and I didn't mention this in any of the history. There was a time where we exchanged save files, world save files, with other people and had other people collaborate and host certain sessions. So what would happen is I would run my session on a certain night, and I knew which nights I was going to run, and we knew what other people were going to run, and they basically took control of the files. They had the the next data. If the RTS software needed to generate more trains, then that was usually done by myself in advance or something along that lines. But everything was set up to go, and then you would have the next person in line would have the files, announcements would be made, and the beautiful thing about that is that can be announced ahead of time on Run8 servers. You could still potentially use the data, but in the case of having a registry, it's not really necessary, and I didn't use a registry so much as I used a sheet to keep track of when trains were coming in and what was available. So I could forecast ahead of the session what trains were available, but there's probably more advanced ways of doing that, but you don't need the registry or you don't need the forms per se, because you're right there at the sheet. You know that you're basically responsible for the session, so you can update the data that everybody can see, that what's available, so they can see that. Doesn't have to change anything. Goes on to the next person, it continues, and so on and so on. Considering there's about, from what I understand, 6 people that are interested, I don't know what their times are like. I don't know if they're they interchange or they like meeting at the same times, but I think it's doable that others could potentially host, especially if they're core long-term members that are willing to take control of the operation, be the train master or whatever. The beautiful thing is, if they're running locals, okay, if they're running mainline trains, it's very difficult to be a train master and be able to spawn trains, because what happens is, in that situation, you actually have to relinquish your train to be able to set up a spawn to AI or to do things. But when you're running a switcher, it's very easy to stop a train, relinquish it, go spawn your other one, or you can even spawn it in advance if you know it's coming. And then you basically from there are able to control it. You can likely switch your industry or yard or whatever, as well as dispatch, as well as spawn other trains, while other people simply have other tasks at hand, or maybe one might be dispatching, like to dispatch or whatever, or something like that. There's a possibility for that. So those things could work in that sense. The other way going around it is, if you want to maintain the 24/7 server, then basically take a page out of what we did in California. Now, California was a very different animal compared to Florida. What we did in California was we paused the clock, which would probably be required some kind of remote access, and I think we had it set up, if I'm not mistaken, but I can't remember exactly how that went. But we had the ability to pause the clock, and it was important because we wanted to represent what was the actual time of day. So just similar to running sessions and actually having evolution of time. Difference here was people were able to do things, especially be able to take control of the manpower. Now, how this differs in California to how I see it differing in Florida is very simple. Most of the industries, first of all, let me start by saying, I mean, we're talking about two very different territories. California is a very high traffic, high density territory. Now, that's not saying Florida doesn't have high traffic density. It does have its fair share of density, especially when you consider the Folkestone Funnel is a very big rail fan site because of that density. However, it does not have the density like California's transcontinental does. How you do it, you use the same principle. You have somebody who's able to pause the clock. You organize dispatchers ahead of time. And then what you do from there, so you organize the dispatchers ahead of time. Set it up. Organize dispatchers ahead of time. Everything's fine with that. Set things up. Then you go ahead and bring on, sorry. Yeah, let me, my mind's all over the damn. So you have the dispatchers, they're set up ahead of time. And unlike California, because of the density of traffic and where the industries are, it was very difficult to run locals. Running yards was no problem. But during this period, you don't want to be running mainline trains. In California, it just basically, it was very difficult to get around other trains without having them somehow AI'd or moved or whatever. So you're basically stopping all the trains. It's a lot to stop. Usually you would stop them with signals. You know, you just basically shut off the signals. You put the you would actually put the server into you know, back into dictatorship mode, so that nobody can come on and just simply get in and start changing signals in that. Or you would have it obligatory with a different password that only qualified dispatchers could. So what that would do is that would prevent others from going in and being able to change any of the signals. It didn't prevent them from running the trains a little way, but as far as it didn't prevent them from running the trains through red signals either, quite frankly, at least from a player perspective. But what it did was it basically said, okay, this is where the traffic stopped. Now, I mentioned about some of the history in here, about situations in California where this ticked off a lot of people. Now, keep in mind, California, RTS California had a fairly strong following, being the default route, and RTS being around for, well, less than 5 years at the time, probably a little under 5 years, even though we've been around before the release. So we did tick off some people and we lost some people. I mentioned this in this article that I started putting. I forget where I put it. I'm not going to worry about it. It's in there. But and you can do a search on the wiki if you want to see it. You just type in RTS South. Check this box here. That'll tell you. So we ticked off some people. And I was willing to take their suggestions or have discussions. Some people just basically up and left. They back. They didn't want to go into suggestions. They thought it was ridiculous and they left. I know of at least one person. I was surprised at the reaction, and I never really considered it. I never really considered their point of view. But then again, they didn't really try to argue it either. They just were like, oh, wow. I guess that means I'm not going to be around or something like that. I don't know what the hell it was. I remember time. And I was glad they feel that way. But then again, can't please everyone. So Florida has, what, 6 people right now, I think was what I heard. 6 core people. And a lot of them run locals. So it really doesn't affect them that much. Furthermore, if they're running locals, the good thing about the Jacksonville section is, as long as you can get the trains and sidings that don't affect the work, they should be able to run the main lines. It's a lot different in California because a lot of times they're in double track sections, and you gotta basically, you gotta weed your way around them. Some places like Needles, it gets very difficult to weed your way around them. But with Florida, you're dealing with the exception of the only double track section is has no industries on it. It's just double track from Jacksonville. Well, it might have one, but it doesn't have really much of active. You're basically from the funnel, just a little north of the funnel, down south into Jacksonville. Or actually, no, it goes as far as, I guess it goes as far as St. John's, technically. But in reality, for running the majority of the industries, now you go further south, most of the traffic is already veered off to Callahan Sub, and now you're only dealing with Amtrak's, and you're dealing with Amtrak, some intermodal stuff, and a few other things. So the possibility is there to be able to do it that way, and still, basically, it allows you to maintain the integrity of the dispatch screen. In other words, keeping trains on schedule at the times that they are supposed to be frozen clock. The downside, and a lot of people didn't like this, is the time didn't change. But the positive about the time is you're not always coming on. If you come on at the same time every night and you're getting the same type of day, if you're like me, come home at 5 o'clock at night, and in the winter, it's always dark. So you run prime time, and you're constantly running in the dark, constantly running in the dark, constantly running in the dark. You might get a little bit of sunlight during the summer, the longest days of the year. Other than that, you're constantly coming home and running in the dark. If you're running on, and for most people, that itself can be a turnoff. So what this does is it allows you to cycle through the actual sessions and be able to do all that. Now, so you have these trains that are running. You have the locals. They're doing their thing. They go wherever they have to go. They have access to be able to do that. The only thing that nobody should be doing is running the mainline trains that are normally run by AI anyways, and nobody should need to dispatch, with the exception of qualified dispatchers who would be there to help them. Now, getting back to the breakthroughs. The first breakthrough was, as I said, if something becomes available within a 24-hour period, that's 24 hours of dispatching, if something becomes available, then they have the opportunity, anybody has the opportunity to switch that train. It may not have to be done all on the same day, but that train would need to be switched. If suddenly the cars are no longer there, well, that means that job needs to be finished. Because now there's no return train, so that job needs to be finished before the outbound train can come. Hopefully it gets back before the next outbound train is scheduled to leave, because otherwise then, but crew delays happen in real life. So it's not a big deal. Those things happen. The beautiful part about that is you're no longer relying on an actual cycle of 30 days or whatever the heck it is. Because now you're actually running a dispatched real-time schedule. You can run it on a 24/7 server, or you can run it through sessions. I like running it through sessions only because if you have a limited number of people you get to control, you have others that get to control the pace, or get to control the show, make sure that the trains run. They're responsible. They're basically the train master. You don't have to be the dispatcher. They don't have to be, whatever. You can have other people do dispatching or take turns, or whatever. The beautiful thing about Florida Waycross is you only need one dispatcher. And so far I've been able to dispatch. In my trials I've been able to dispatch, and I've been able to the hump operation, and even do a little bit of rail fanning so far. I don't know if I can keep up that pace. I haven't figured it out. I'm still trying to figure out Waycross. I have the TD3 data, I have everything else. So the more I think about this, the more I think there is a possibility of the unification. And I'm open for it. I truly am. However, if you guys aren't for the unification, and I only mention this because it was suggested to me. So my original thought was, well, first of all, as I mentioned, I think in the article, Tom actually suggested, well, it might be better that I go for Selkirk Mohawk, since we really needed a presence there, and we had a California, I think we had a California server at the time, and of course we had Tom's server for Florida 24/7. So having that said, once I saw Waycross, and I was not, and I mentioned this in this article that I've done so far, I lost interest in Selkirk Mohawk. Just didn't do it for me. I love the beauty of the route, but the operation just didn't appeal to me. It was too much of a, just, I don't know. It just didn't appeal to me. The location of the hump, it wasn't, I don't know if it's the location of the hump or what it was. It just, something didn't appeal to me. I think when you have trains that majority of it goes westbound, and you only had certain trains that kind of went to other directions, but they really didn't go too far, hump didn't had a lot of issues. Now, Waycross isn't without its issues either. I've noticed similar issues, but not as many for the hump. I'm still testing the limits of Waycross hump, by the way. So far, I have not seen any indication of resource issues. Looking good so far, but I'm not done, and I'm still going to continue to, regardless, while we suggest this or talk about this, I'm willing to talk about this and see what people want to, what they want. And I'm all for building on the hobby. I'm all for building on our base. I'm all for bringing more people into it. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can't do it separate either. I can do it my way, Tom can do it this way, and we can feed off each other. Right now I'm already using a lot of Tom's data. I plan on using more of Tom's data. Hopefully Tom can also see what I'm doing and take what works for him if we decide to keep separate. I will bring in people, I think. I'll bring people in. I imagine I will. If I don't, it's not a big deal. But I will bring people in to see what I've got to offer. I know they're likely to, there'll be a curiosity factor. And that'll feed off of those who want to run when I'm not running. Likewise, the same can be said. Those that I bring in, like, will go 24/7, but at the same time, those that are running on even Tom's server may notice that I have a session up at certain times and might be intrigued by that. They might be interested. If it works for their time, then it might be something they would be interested in joining. But we need to discuss these things. We need to get our heads together on this. I'm not used to running with Tom and that crew. I know them enough that, you know, be it admins for RTS or whatever. I know them enough, but I don't know everybody. I don't know what everybody likes to do. I don't know what times they like to run. I don't a lot that I don't know. For now, I'm not too focused on that. For me, my focus, Waycross, is seeing, for one, how much work is involved in the data that I have for it. Now, one thing I will mention is the registry. I think the registry works, is almost necessary in a 24/7 environment. However, it is not something that's really needed when it comes to a 24/7 environment that has a pause clock and operations. By that is talking about running of sessions, trains being available, and stuff like that, because the person that runs person that actually runs, I mean, there could be a registry to some extent, but it's not as vital, I don't. Because what happens in AI, running in the case of a session, all these trains are moving, including the manifest trains. They will be moving too. If nobody's running a manifest train, such as my trains that come down, it will run AI, not need people. This is part of that first breakthrough. Being able to have a train that all you have to do, stop it at a certain point as a train master, get over to it, do your set off, get back connected to the train, hit the AI button, and away you go. Next set off. It doesn't take much. Like basically a utility conductor. It really doesn't take that much manual labor like RTS 1 would take. So it's not intensive. And if trains don't get switched, there's not enough manpower. First of all, if that train sets off everything, all of a sudden you have 3 jobs that are available, depending upon what time of day they start. But again, clock goes 24 or 20 hours or whatever it is while it's sitting there in the yard. So as long as it gets run within a reasonable time within that simulated day, like let's say for example, if you take my example, let's assume it's just not me. Let's say I run 6 hours. Somebody else wants to dispatch for 6 hours. So now you have 2 other people who also like running the show, which is cool because I like running mainline train, doing other things under another dispatcher. I'm intrigued by that. So that suddenly that's a different environment for me. Not running the dispatch and running the hump. That's all of a sudden now I'm running a train. I'm got a purpose. Let's just say we run 12 hours. So what that means is you're now into what normally be is a cycle that lasts only weeks. Always going to be, as long as you run 4 sessions of 3 hours each week, you're going to have a 2-week cycle regardless of the, because if those industries do not get switched, the supply train that had it be reverted. The emphasis then becomes on top down main lines. The emphasis then gets focused on making sure that there's enough cars to come back and make up new trains. That's where all the emphasis comes. The main emphasis becomes Waycross, as that's the center of the hub. That's what makes everything go. If Waycross starts falling behind, well, then things get delayed, but then it can get caught up again. One other extra person who wants to help in Waycross can suddenly come in. Suddenly you have two humans, one building trains while one train humps. And running a hump really is not that labor intensive because you're able to dispatch. That's why I say somebody who's dispatching can use operate. Somebody who's dispatching can still even be a trim or even a switcher. So there's a lot of potential there. So anyways, yeah, that's I mean I don't want to beat a dead horse. It's 10:56 p.m. and I'm that's what I wanted to get into. Plus, I don't know. I don't know if I could have said it in words any better than I words on a. This is something that has to be open discussion. I'm gonna leave it up to the Florida guys. Cipher this information. If they don't understand this information or video, I will put another post on here about it. I would recommend try to sit through however long I've been rambling. See what it is. Like I said before, as far as a registry, it's not as important. I don't know what time frames or what he knew right away. There was about 6 people. So I'm open up to, I mean, myself and both Mike, Ski, communicated on where you guys, I certainly will put the olive branch right back. If you guys want to discuss this, forms is not something that you get a lot of ideas quickly. I'm more than happy to have nothing to do with a live stream because I talk to people privately all the time on Google. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with a lot of people on Google Hangouts. I have TeamSpeak client. It's okay. I prefer Google Hangouts. The sound quality is better. You don't have you can talk over each other and still hear what the other people are saying while you're saying something. I like it. That's what I like to use. And I even use telephone. So I'm certainly open to it. I think the more I think about it, there's probably enough common ground that it can be done. If it doesn't, it doesn't happen. World certainly want options. Certainly want people able to have access, or at least have not so much access to 24/7. I still say 24/7. I think people having access to servers important key. And if you're in Europe, if you're in anywhere else, okay, you don't have access to things. You can still host a session. You can get other, perhaps Europeans, to run a line. We're in an age where we send files. In network, we do all kinds of things, systems. So sharing files and sending data back and forth through email and setting up schedules. I know that sessions it does not benefit those that are impromptu people who suddenly have time and want to come on and they don't know what the schedule's. That's always been one key argument. And that's fine. But at the same time, when you have something, and this is actually Ski and I were talking about, The problem with 24/7 is you don't know what the demand is going to be. You do not know how many people you don't know dispatchers. We have not had, we used to have a lot of dispatchers. Said, where did all the dispatchers go? I've been saying this for a while. We used to have people constantly wanted to dispatch on our server. Suddenly it just disappeared. And I think we kind of, fortunately, we drove them away. Because at the time, and this was before AI, and this was some of the other things, well, maybe AI would just had come out, but there wasn't that much opportunity to dispatch. California, there's a lot of opportunity to dispatch. Florida, now there's opportunity to dispatch there. Selkirk, Mohawk, at least 2 servers that I love, both Smiley for RTS, as well as our friend Scott SMRY. He has a server that he puts up and down, at various times. So there's certainly opportunities to communicate with Scott and Smiley. Smiley's here on the RTS forums. So there's a lot of opportunity out there to collaborate, do different things. Like I said before, if it's not meant to be, and there's too many things, I'm willing to try to develop everything that I can. I know, and I know a lot of you guys, especially, I know Daryl, Tom, the amount of work that's being put in by you guys, certain research and set up different. I don't want to take away from it. I would much rather know what Tom has got for industries, maybe some of the ideas got for various sheets that we could use. I'm not anti-registry. I'm the one who thought of the term. That was all I used. Registry's purpose was always about making sure that only certain people had access. So anybody could use a form that would automatically change the data, but it is not there so that they could just go in and data and 24/7, and then you wouldn't have a clue as to somebody would just go there and edit the sheets. Want to control, able to see a form, able to see registry entries, then reverse it if somebody did something wrong or up, and you were able to go in and make those, like how the wiki will work. I can go in if somebody, hell, any people can go in and edit this article if they want to. And if it adds to the article and it's nice, then by all means edit it. Anybody can edit articles on here. Anybody can. There's so much ability to collaborate stuff here. Somebody can finish off this article for me. I mean, Tom can go in and edit this article if he has time. You can see that edit button. He'll have access to that. He doesn't, even though he has admin. Anybody can go in and edit that. So, well, I think you have to be a Wikia member to edit. Anyways, I think you can edit it if you're anonymous. But anyways, that little edit button there, anybody can do that. So it's an admin that has to roll it back. I can tell you right now, as admins, or at least myself, as the what the hell am I called? The and I gotta end this thing. Founder. I'm considered the quote unquote founder. Yes. So I have full admin access. I think I have other access. I can destroy everything. I can do that. I'm the one. I'm the keys with the close of the. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm gonna end this here. I regret that I couldn't get to that. I'm gonna go on, post some messages, let you guys know about what you're already not following me on the live stream. Hopefully that kind of addresses too much further into. I will put a link to this post in what I've done. I'm not. I got tomorrow. I'm going to be on Southwest Royals. I'm not. I don't think I'm going to be doing it tomorrow. Highly doubt it. It'd take a lot of thought. So, I may not even get to it. To be honest, I might not even get this. This was my started it, and then the storm came. I should. But anyways, I wanted to address it because I promised I was going to. So I did it. So mission accomplished. Anyways, yeah, that's it for now. I will be back tomorrow to host the. I might be on a little bit earlier than usual, but I should be on Southwest Rails, assuming everything's okay in the Texas area. I will be on the Southwest Rails server to dispatch the West End tomorrow night. I will see you then. Now and then, yourself a good night. You kiddies enjoy going back to school. I hate this time of year. When I was a kid, I hated this time of year. Anyways, yeah, watch out for the kids too. And, you know, summer's not over to the 21st, so, you know, still enjoy it. And get in the outdoors as much as you can and have fun. Anyways, have a good one, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.